today, Living Soul Led with my very good friend Stephanie. She's here to talk about her magical therapy. It's just so amazing. But Stephanie, good to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Um, First off, where are you from?
So I'm here in the UK and I'm in a place called Shropshire, which is kind of in the middle bit near Birmingham, sort of direction in the UK. And I live in the middle of the countryside. So I'm surrounded by fields and a really old cottage from the 1700s, surrounded by fields and sheep and big old country lanes, just as you think of like ye olde England. I kind of live in that sort of countryside.
So magical. I wanted to ask that question because yes, you hear an accent. And why? Because Stephanie's over in England. Um, so quick first question, well, technically the second one. How would you define living soul led?
I guess for me, it's about kind of finding your, almost like leading from a place of your purpose and
Mhm.
your sort of like your path. And I guess in order to get on there, there's a lot of navigating, listening to your inner self rather than the mental self. So I think I think for me, soul led is very much listening to my intuition
Yep.
and listening to almost like feeling the feelings. So if somebody says, "Would you like to do something?" really dropping into that place of, does that feel right? Rather than, "What do I think I want to do?" So for me, it's a little bit of a combination because I do love using my mind, but listening, so being soul led for me is definitely listening to the intuition, which I would say is a feeling rather than a thinking sensation.
I love that definition. And in your life, how does that play out? How do you implement living soul led in a daily basis for you?
I guess it's there are a couple of things I always do that really helps me drop into listening to myself, as in listening to that inner me rather than the mental me. And things are getting out in nature. So for me, going for a walk each day really keeps me grounded and in my body and not in my mental thinking place, but into actually, yeah, here I am. This is real. These are the trees. I can feel the breeze on my skin. I can listen to the birds. It's a real sort of like I'm present. And
Mhm.
in that place, I can listen to myself. So I guess the way that it sort of like comes out is what do I want to eat? So I would say some of my more sort of like soul-led experiences is actually what would I want? What does my body want? So I would say one of my
Awesome.
most soul-led ways are food, as in what do I want to eat? So it's been, and that's been, and I started that practice even doing things like going shopping rather than what am I going to cook this week? Head. Okay. So I'm going to cook a casserole. Okay. So what do I need for that? I need a chicken, this, that, and I have my recipe actually going into there. What do I want to eat this week? And it might be a casserole, but it's like, what do I want in that? And really looking and seeing what's available feels for me more soul-led,
Yeah.
I'm really listening to myself rather than what's in the recipe book. That's up here. Yeah.
You
So
know,
that for me is a really big difference.
yeah, and that's huge. I've never thought of even asking, what do I want to eat? Because cooking is not my forte. I am like, how fast can I cook it and get it on the table? But so I love that what sounds good to my soul versus what is just fast to cook. So I
Yeah.
like that. So how would you describe your journey to becoming soul led? Have you always been able to hear your heart?
No. I think we can safely say no. I didn't always listen to my heart. I think I certainly probably. Let's think. When I was a child, probably I was more soul-led. Then I went through my teenage years and very much was influenced by a lot of the world around me. A lot of my peers, and all what I was taught would be the good way to be, whether or not that was a good academic child. Good. I was in very sort of like into the church, and I went to a convent school here in the UK. So I got taught by nuns in the convent school. And so it was sort of like I wanted to be good, and I was very much sort of like I loved the ritual of church. But
Okay.
for me, there was a lot of this of sort of like lots of influences around me, and I wanted to fit in. But when I was a teenager, the place that I found actually the sort of like the calmness, and I really was listening to myself maybe, was when I was in the church, but not in the church doing a service, which was like a ritual. It was actually in the church, just in the silence of the church. That was very peaceful. And so for me, probably when I was a teenager, I connected with it there.
That's
And
awesome.
then yeah, so it was good. It was a nice place to be. It was that peace. And then as I got into my 20s, I would say it was all head led. Right, what's the career? Where am I going to go? How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to move in the country? All of those things. Again, not really soul led, I would say. But then I started, I think, realizing that I needed to use my intuition more. So this is where I think things started to change. In my 20s, I realized it wasn't just all about the job. It was like actually things started cropping up, and there'd be these really incredible, oh, that's a bit of a coincidence. There's a job in that place that I really was interested in going to. And then I started to think a little bit more about listening to intuition, getting into mindfulness, getting into meditation, going to yoga, those sorts of things that again kind of was just gave me that peace and the quiet and the silence and connected me to my body and my probably my spirit rather than just the mental me.
I mean, I never knew the story about the church and going to Covenant, church being taught by nuns. So that's a very interesting um development. I love that's neat. So I guess then, so how did you go? Because I know, and if this is okay to talk about, that you communicate with dragons.
I do. Yes. So that was all quite an incredible opening. So you and I met when we were doing a course with Kim Woods,
Yep.
and which was fantastic. And as part of that, it was all about opening up to our spiritual gifts as well. And even though I would say I was already fairly open, it certainly gave me the potential to open to a different level. And in the process of sort of like having maybe a deeper meditation, getting, really using my gifts a little bit more and being exploring them. I had this incredible experience where I basically shorted out the village and released a dragon out of the earth to start working for me. Yeah, so that was my arrival into working with dragons. Yeah, it was quite, yeah, made quite an impact.
Oh, I bet. I can't imagine what happened, the news around the village at that day. But I love that. And I mean, I think this is the part of our journeys to be living soul-led is that we keep uncovering things.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, when I work with clients, and I'm sure when you work with clients too, they're always like, I need to be perfect before. I need to be perfect now. And I'm like, there is no perfect. We're on this journey, and I don't want to stop where I'm at. So
Yeah.
the day that you opened and released the dragons, did you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to go any further? Or was that like just felt so naturally right?
Um, a little bit of it felt, I was going to say it felt very daunting for me
Yeah.
personally because I'd released the massive great big dragon, which, I was there thinking, what have I done? You know, is this okay? What? But I think, in fact, it was a pivotal point of my exploring concepts that I'd already been working on. So I'd already been working on the fact that we are here and in the past and in the future and multidimensional, and the energy is moving and we are connected to multiple places. And I'd already been working on that, really expanding our perception of what's real and what's not real. Okay, so, releasing a dragon, which, is kind of like, how do you describe something that in a theory isn't real? That is real to me. So it's also it's so this whole playing with the concept of reality and really trying to expand what I thought was possible was almost, this was evidence that, oh, okay, so when you do this work and you actually allow yourself to be open to all possibilities, all possibilities literally can happen. And they did. And so this was almost like, oh, okay, this is what this means. This is what it means when you really do expand and open yourself up to being willing to work with energy in a different way and spirit in a different way and guides in a different way. And I've loved working with them ever since.
And you're amazing at it. Which
Thank
tell
you.
me, well, tell all of us what magical therapy is.
I guess
Four
the thing
words.
is yeah, so I would say the thing is with therapy, I am a trained therapist, so I'm a counselor. And so, there's this whole thing about working with the mind, working with the emotions, working with the body, and all of the way that that interacts. But very often, the bit that's missed out of therapy is the fact that, what about your spiritual self? Okay. And what about your whole spiritual team? Okay, because it's not just us that are involved in this. So for instance, working with somebody is actually, it's about not just blending with the energy of the person who's in front of me. It's also opening myself to being able to work with and receive information from their team, their spiritual team, as well as my spiritual team.
Yeah.
So it's no longer about two people in a room, because this is what people often talk about with therapy. It's all about, well, it's all about the relationship between the client and the therapist. It is, but for a lot of people, especially spiritual people, they're not working just as in this physical body. They're working with their whole spiritual team in often healing huge things and delivering massive purpose that they've carried over multiple lifetimes
Yep.
to experience. I mean, you've got incredible work that you've been doing with goddesses, in particular with Kali, which a lot of people who will be listening to this will be really familiar with. It would be crazy for me to pretend that that wasn't there if I was to work with you. Do you know what I mean? It'd be sort of like, it would be absolutely crazy not to.
And
Does that make sense?
I will be completely open. Um, if I need therapy and if I'm dealing with things that my mind is really struggling with, Stephanie is the one I call. So I know the power of her magical therapy because when I bring in and say, I'm working with Kali, she doesn't look at you and go, okay, we're not going there because that doesn't make sense. She's like, oh, you fully grasp this. And I can tell her the journey that I've been on and how where I feel things are. And yes, the past life stuff, this weird energetic chords that I have not been able to break. I can go to Stephanie and say in therapy, like the full like work through this as and the logical side because she's is a therapist. She's amazing. But then she can go, but I feel like this isn't even about what's happened now and this time. This is about this. And you're like, oh, yes, I couldn't put it into words, but Stephanie puts it into words for me. So I love magical therapy. So you can be completely open. Like if we're talking in a session, it would be something like this. I disclosed it. I'm fine with that. So
Yeah.
how do you feel from your side? Because I know how it feels from my side. So how does it feel from your side to approach therapy in a different way?
For me, it has allowed me to feel like this is what therapy is about. This is holistic. This is, because my real passion, I suppose, is around people being able to let go of things in the past, people being able to live their life with that freedom and openness and really being able to live the life they want to manifest rather than holding on to stuff in the past and then manifesting some load of extra stuff that they don't need to manifest moving into the future. This is why therapy for me is like, okay, so now we can start working energetically. And this is why I really like working this way. And I think it's actually more the future. I think that this has got to be the way forward because if we think that we are co-creating our life, we have got to think about what are we taking forward. And in order to take it forward, we can let go of so much, but we also need to expand ourselves energetically so that we can reach our potential because at the minute you can't see it
Right.
are your spiritual team very often is helping you kind of go, we believe in you, you got this, what about this? And they're kind of like knocking on your door going, have you seen this? And they're kind of like Instagrams randomly opening at certain courses, at certain posts, at certain quotes, just to try and get you, oh yeah, that's it. But the thing is, if you're like, oh no, 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 I've got this going on. It's like, yeah, we need to clear this out so you can start noticing this over here because it's flashing you in the face,
Right.
but because of this that's going on, you're not seeing it. And it really reminds me of that post that sometimes you see. And it's like it's got I don't know if you've seen it, but there's like a kitten and it's trying to get out of a cage and it's clawing at the bars. And the person that's saying the spiritual team, big hole, come, kitten, come on. And it's going, I can't, I can't, I can't.
Yep.
And it's like, here's the hole. And it kind of feels like that. What I'm trying to do is go, okay, stop with the claw in the cage. Okay, let's put the cage down. I'm going to come in with you and I'll show you the door, then move on. It's that's where I think this therapy, magical therapy makes the difference. Is because I'm saying I can see what the spiritual team is kind of showing me and you, and I'm going, okay, yeah, we got it. We're not communicating here. I'll go in, kind of go, let's let go of this. Let's move on now. Yeah, does that kind of describe it?
It does. I think it's great. And I want to add the again, as a coach slash mentor, I'm not a therapist. So there are things that I tell people, like I'm not trained to address that, but Stephanie is trained in this. So tell us a little bit about the practical, your history, the therapy. Like, so we release dragons, we have magical therapy, but before that, you were a full therapist working with families, couples. So tell us a little bit more
Yeah,
that you have that training that as a coach, mentor, and the difference between go to a coach or a mentor or go to a full therapist. I,
yeah,
like I said, I'm fully open. I have to go to a therapist sometimes because there's stuff in my past. I've talked about mother wounds and stuff like that, but they're stuff that like I need someone who's a therapist who understands when I say a narcissist or a sociopath, they know like, oh, then this is all the practical things that
yeah.
with that. That's Stephanie. So I'm going to let you talk about your like traditional, a little bit therapy history.
Sure. So I guess there are several areas of therapy that I work a lot with. One of them is around grief. And I guess that was where I really started realizing that there's a whole element here with spirituality that wasn't part of the room. And I delivered that therapy in a very traditional way. So even though I was getting messages from people who've moved on or from my spiritual team who were picking things up, I shut that all down. I was like, no, I'm here with my clients. This is how we do therapy. And I kind of blocked it all off and kept myself very in the therapist mode, which was just stay in the room with your client, discount everything around you. And so but obviously I had an awareness. Okay. So the way that I actually delivered it then wasn't to use any of that information I was getting, other than um, maybe use something a bit more creative so that they could access information slightly differently. So I used to really love doing work that was around drawing or using color and buttons or using visualizations to help people just try and go into certain places. But as I say, for the grief therapy, it was that was what really introduced me to the fact that I wasn't accessing everything. I was accessing the physical, the mental, and emotional. There was a whole spiritual element I wasn't using. So that was where I started. And then I got really interested in cognitive behavior therapy, which is about really working with your thoughts and really working with how you manage your thoughts. Really fantastic for anxiety and depression. And this really links with mindfulness. But I was really interested in this because for me, thoughts are energy. So this is where, again, when I was dealing with anxiety and this whole cognitive behavior therapy, I was thinking, well, hang on a second, this is where thoughts are energy, the whole, and universal laws, and the whole manifestate law of attraction, all of these things. So everything was kind of sparkling over here, but I was just like traditional therapist, stay in the room, just work with your client. So I stayed with this, and then I got very into relationships. So I work a lot now with people, not only with anxiety and depression, but I work a lot with people in relationships, specifically who have attachment issues, which are developed over childhood. They're not always developed over childhood, but very often in childhood or previous relationships. But they tend to play out in the relationships that you then have with either your partner or your children, because these are our really intimate relationships that we have with people. And this is where I really sort of like this, I really love doing this work because there's lots of people who have wounding from their past. We all have to recognize that our parents did the best that they could at that time, given all of their stuff that they were going through. But that doesn't mean that we have to hold on to some of that. And it's been a lot of work. And this is what I get very passionate about. This is some of the stuff that really, for me, leads into this intuition and my awareness, because this is about, hang on a second, we've got cords. This isn't this lifetime. Some of this is multiple lifetimes. Some of these people that you're surrounding yourself with, you've got links with them. They've got links with you. You've been their child. They've been your parent. There's all of this stuff going on, and you can feel the depth and the lineage with the relationship as you're talking to this person, because now what I'm doing is I'm allowing myself to energetically sink into the information they're giving me rather than just keeping it in my head and having a mental conversation. I'm allowing this now to be a real spiritual energy level conversation. And that's the magic.
And that is the magic because there's definitely your energy comes through in all that you do. But in those sessions, it is magical. Uh, Again, from my standpoint, it's been life changing working with Stephanie on certain things. Like there's a freedom that I never felt before, but because of the energetic cords that I was unable to see, even in my magical abilities and all of that, um, I couldn't see my own chords. I might see them for other people and I might be able to do things for other people, but doing it for yourself is a totally different thing. But Stephanie comes in and she's helped all of that. So, what do you feel is the key? The key
Hmm.
to accepting your own magic through in therapy?
I think it is being brave enough to say, I'm working now so holistically. I'm working with you energetically, not just as the person sat in front of me. We're working with all of you, absolutely all of you. And I recognize now as a magical therapist rather than just a traditional therapist that when we're working together, we're working on that level of the energy that you brought to this lifetime. And that is what we're working with because you're here for a reason. And some of that reason is to also let go of some of the things that you have been trying to let go of for years and several
Lifetime.
lifetimes. Yeah, and this is your time to let these things go. You don't have to keep having them keep coming up, keep reoccurring. One of the hardest things for people in relationships in particular, as I say, because that's my thing, is around the allowing people to make their own mistakes and letting go of them so that they can do that without almost like being their safety net. And because some one of the things, especially as a partner, is we can almost get into mothering our partner. It can be a real classic thing, sort of like, oh, you really need to do this, darling. And it's like, whoa, it's like, well, they could, they might not want to. And this is all about that sort of allowing yourself to be you, allowing themselves to be them. And actually, I often think of it as being they're one circle over here, you're one circle over here. And when you're together, this is your relationship, that lovely intersection between the two of you. And what you don't want to do is get lost in that relationship where you end up either being consumed by looking after them or them kind of consumed by almost like dominating how you're living your life. It's all about this beautiful intersection and getting that really, really right.
I love
So I
that.
think that that's where it's really moved to for me. That's where my passion is now.
So I was going to say, so where do you see and how do you see people working with magical therapy?
So I think one of the things is basically I think it works best when it's one to one. I think that when people are in a place when they're ready for change or they cannot see what they're stuck in, and very often they come to me with one thing. Let's say it's anxiety, but actually, in the process of anxiety, we're undoing fear. Some of that fear may have been a trauma, may have been from the past. Why are we holding in this anxiety in now? Let's start the unpicking. So this is the thing, is very often people aren't thinking about past lives. They're not thinking about all of these things. What they're doing is they're coming to me saying, you know what? I've got this really weird thing and I'm getting really anxious about XYZ. It was like, okay, well, let's start there. And then in that, it's almost like an onion. In peeling that layer off, it's like, oh, no, this is deeper, isn't it? Okay, let's go down another level. Okay, we got down a bit more. And I think this is the thing. It's the peeling back the layers. And
Yes.
what we're doing it now is everything we let go of now not only helps the generation going forward, it helps heal the generation in the past. So this is where this really beautifully intersects with your work, is that mother wound, we're able to let go of it. Witch wounds, we're able to let go of some of it. Some of these fears, they may feel irrational, but hang on a second, are they irrational? Or actually, have these been generated for hundreds of years? Let's work on those and let those go too.
So basically, magical therapy is for everyone.
It is for everyone. It is for everyone.
The only thing I would say, I mean, I thank you for magical therapy, you have to be open to seeing the world in a little bit different. If you believe in manifestation, if you believe in spiritual guides, if you, I mean, what else do you think is kind of that, yes, you need to be changed, but what makes it, if, why have magical therapy, which is going to be, I can tell you, I mean, for me, it's like, it was, it would have taken years of therapy versus 30 minutes with Stephanie. That's how it feels. And so
Yeah.
I think that's I want to just how I mean it doesn't have to be. Now, again, full disclosure, we've known each other for a long time. There's a very deep level of trust. So it doesn't mean that Stephanie's always going to be like, okay, we're going to just hit it right now, this moment. But what do you feel makes someone a candidate for magical therapy? Because it is magical, but you need to have the mindset of,
I think you've got to be aware of your probably your spiritual team and your own intuition, because I am going to be working energetically with you. And so I am also working in your energy. So it's sort of like we're really working together to unpick this. So I would say somebody who's perfect for magical therapy is probably somebody who is already spiritual, who is probably already working with their oracle cards, has possibly connected with their spirit guides, and is possibly either working with messages or is getting really stuck with the messages. Does that make sense? It's almost like it's that awareness, but it's not, because also they can't have this conversation with a traditional therapist, because the moment they turn around and say, I hear voices, the psychiatrist or the therapist is going, okay, so what are your other? They're basically holding back a whole part of them from their therapy session. And this is why I think this is important, because you know what? You've got a whole team of people already behind you, kind of cheerleading you. They're trying to, and if I can help pick up some of that information and help you access it, then that's what I'm here to do. And sometimes I might even be able to reveal somebody else new who's decided to turn up. It's like, have you come across this person? Because this person's really trying to give me information, and I can describe that person to you. And maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't, but it's kind of like, at least I can give it to you so that you can try and pick up on that. If those people are really trying to support you in what you're doing and how you're living every single day.
I love that. And I think I do think it's really key because when I was at a place and I knew I was needing to go back and do some work on some mother wounds, I knew that going back to traditional therapy, I've done it, been there, whatever, wasn't going to bring all of who I was at this point, my meditation practice, my oracle cards. So I knew at that moment that I needed something different. And fortunately, we were already in the same worlds and knew each other. But I knew at that moment, and I think I was like that day when I'm like, I want to finally solve, push past, get past this one little mother wound. I'm like, only person I can work with is Stephanie. And I knew that because going into a therapist and saying, well, I work with Collie and Collie's telling me these things, they're going to just look at me. I mean, some might say, okay, but no, I'm even being stopped. No one's going to understand it like Stephanie. Like she's
Yeah.
in that world. Like that is, so if you find yourself, I'll just say to whoever's watching this, that you've tried the traditional therapy, and it's just not getting you where you wanted to go, reach out to Stephanie. And
Thank you.
Stephanie, where do you work? I mean, just where do people need to be in order to work with you?
Okay, so I work worldwide online. So I
Yep.
have clients are in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, here in the UK, as well as in the States and South America down in Brazil. So I literally am a worldwide therapist, and I'm really, really proud to be that, because I love the fact that working online means that I can literally, it's all part of this. I can be everywhere and here. all at the same time, which for me energetically really, really fits how I vibe. Because here I am in my little house in the UK, but actually I'm not. I'm over here talking to you. You know, it's like for me, this is like exactly how energetically it feels to me. This is my reality.
Yeah, because energetically there are no borders. And so it
Exactly.
doesn't matter. As long as you have an internet connection, you can work with Stephanie.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So and it really is simple. We just hook up. I invoice via PayPal because PayPal again is all over the world. So everyone can pay via PayPal and it's just a Zoom link and we just work online on Zoom. So yeah, so it's really, really simple. And yeah, and I really enjoy it. I love the fact that I can work with people all over the world and that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you are. Literally, you're literally in front of me here in the UK.
Yep. Or she's with you at wherever you are because she does. She comes
Yeah.
into that energetic field and you can feel Stephanie's energy around you when you're in sessions or even like right now. I feel Stephanie in this room. Again, she works with dragons. I feel dragons around me. So I love working with Stephanie. And Stephanie, I thank you for coming on and talking about living a soul-led life. One last question. What is your one piece of advice for everyone and anyone in order to step into that soul-led living?
Take a breath, get outside, feel the wind on your face. Allow your feet to properly feel grounded and connect yourself to the earth and out to the universe and embrace everything. And that amazing connection that you have, that incredible chord, is so beautifully expansive. In those moments, breathe it in because that's the way to expand and really connect to yourself and really feel that intuition building and glowing.
I love that. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, please, if you are going to work with me, you are probably going to also be working with dragons because there is no doubt about it. There isn't any therapy session, any magical therapy session in particular, where a dragon doesn't turn up. So if you are sort of like intuitively thinking, oh, maybe I might like to work with you, please be aware that dragons may start turning up in your life. So I just want to put that out there.
And they're not scary. I have
Really not.
she has helped me connect to dragons that are huge and like all the way out around my backyard to like dragons that sit in my lap and protect my belly. I'm like a dog. And so
Yeah.
her dragons are exactly what you need when you need it. And they're not scary. I mean, I know we've got this concept of dragons or whatever. I think of more like Pete's dragon, the little Puff the Magic Dragon kind of. Now,
Yeah.
they're fun, but they also have a purpose. So sometimes they're not the ones that are little, but then if you bring in a bigger dragon, it's because you needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're normally there because they need or they want they're ready and you're ready to be open up to it and to support you. So yeah, they're very good at just giving you a little bit of a push. Think of that sort of like tail swishing you off and saying, "Come on, you're gonna do it." So,
Yep.
but they're there to support you because they believe that you can do this.
I love it.
Courage and bravery. That's probably their key thing. Courage and bravery.
That's awesome. And we all need all of us need more courage and bravery. All
Yeah.
right, well, Stephanie, I thank you, and I'm gonna let you get back to your night in the UK.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to be on.
Thank you.